By 2006, thought the combination of the ABX index and the new credit default swap market made it possible to short subprime securitizations. Redolph was ready to take the bungle. He had negative feelings about New Century, about American Test. About a few other lenders, we looked for securities with those mortgage. He also looked for mortgage bonds that were heavily weighted toward cash out refits. In the spring of 2006, he began massively buying credit default swaps on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of securities set subprime mortgage. Redleaf and Vigilant would later greater write that their biggest fear was that the trade would quickly disappear. The mortgage market was so obviously headed for trouble that by early 2006, when we started shorting mortgage-backed securities, we feared the fun would be over before we were fully invested. The growth panic we needed have worried they continued. Rather than the trade vanishing too quickly, we rapidly found ourselves scratching our brains, our heads in this belief that we could short still more mortgage securities that were obviously going to blow up all the year long as the headlines blurred about subprime originators running into trouble and white foreclosure racing. Redlap added to his short positions every time there was a big piece of new, like the New Century restatement. He expected Wall Street to come to incest. It didn't happen. On the contrary, the swaps were too cheap. It was clearly Wall Street still didn't understand the risks it was assuring. The big Wall Street firms continued to view the AAA tranches as utterly safe. The new ABX index would show them trading at the part that is percent of their stated value for at least another years. After the crisis hit and writers and journalists began to look back at what had happened in those critical years of 2006 and 2007, conventional wisdom sprang up, according to which only a tiny handful of people had the inkling to realize that subprime mortgages were kits of dynamite ready to blow up, but Redfall believes to his insight was not nearly as unique as it's been portrayed in church books as Michael Lewis. The Big Short category sermon at the greatest trade ever, which chronicles Paulson massive ban against the housing market. By Redleaf's account, there were maybe 50 or so hedge funds that would likely have considered this kind of trade. At least 20 of them, maybe more, were heavily short subprime bonds. If you look at the disastrous smart players, it says along got it. In that, the market took off. Credit default swap grew faster than even we predicted, with more than of structured product CDOs outstanding on years in 0.5 versus 2 dollars and a years in 0.04. Goldman Sachs reported in a presentation in early 2006, but it didn't take off because Wall Street firms wanted to be on the other side of the best Their smart hedge fund claims were taken. The reason it exploded had to do with one last little wrinkly Wall Street had dreamed up, the one that turned that gave of dynamite into the financial equivalent of a nuclear bomb, the synthetic CDOs. Long before anybody thought to use credit default swap to short mortgage bond, street firms had taken to combining credit default swap on a variety of corporate bonds and credit CDOs. Out of them, they were called synthetic CDOs because the CDOs didn't contain real collateral, rather they were based on the performance of the existing bonds held by someone else. In street parlance, they referenced in real bonds. The gains and losses will be real enough, but the underlying collateral was at one remove unlikely cash CDOs that held collateral and in which all the investors were long and got their payments from the underlying corporate bonds. A systemic CDOs could work only if there were investors on both the long side and the short side of every tranche. To put it another way, hedge positions required to counterparties. Those were long got cash flows that mimicked those of the underlying bonds, while those who were short paid a fee for the swap protections which granted the cash flows but got the right to a big buffalo should no companies default on their debt as ever the cash flows were carved into tranches that were rated all the way from AAA to Joke by 2005. The hot new thing in the market was regulation trading. Going long on tranche maybe AAA, with shorting another tranche the triple B said it was all driven by demand by investors for a particular slice of rigs and models that purpose to show what the spread of the difference in price between various tranches should be. It also Hollywood films to make this correlation trades with immersive leverage because their models told them that the trades balanced out and therefore carried little risk. Remember 2004 when the SEC allowed Wall Street firms to use their own models to calculate the amount of capital they had to hold. Here was the consequence of that decision because the models for correlation trading say they were near riskless trades. The firms didn't have to have bought much capital against those trades. It was like long-term capital management on steroids.